Hey guys, Darren here with Carolina PPG and Power2Fly US. I want to introduce a new trike that we just brought into the country just a few weeks ago. It's called the Sokar. It's by Power2Fly, and it's a new product line. It's going to be a great trike, a little bit smaller than the Phoenix. And there's a build video that a couple guys down in Statesboro, Georgia, great guys, Jeffrey and Jacob Horton, they have a few Power2Fly products, and they've also did the build video for the Phoenix. So I'm going to turn it over to these guys. They did an awesome job, and unfortunately, like I said, I wasn't able to make it. So I'm doing this little short video, and these guys are going to take over. Thank you.
Jeffrey. We started paramotoring about a year and a half ago, and we just fell in love with the sport. We started off with a Power2Fly Titan and a Calibri trike, and it just has kind of gone crazy since then. We did a build video a while back on a Power2Fly Phoenix XC Lite trike with the Cosmos 300, and we got some really good feedback from that video. Good enough that Darren and Alan from Power2Fly US, Carolina PPG, they reached out to us with this exciting new product that we're wanting to share with y'all in this video today. Come on in the garage and let's take a peek at what we got. So this is where we started with the Power2Fly Titan Moster 185. My son Jacob was foot launching this, and I'm an old man, so I was using the Calibri trike. And man, we had a ball. This is what got our feet off the ground and got us in the air flying. But it didn't take me long to realize that I wanted something a little bit bigger. And so we stepped up to the Power2Fly Phoenix XC Lite with the Cosmos 300. I'm only flying it solo right now, although we have had some instructors fly it tandem. Flew with my family and some friends and just had a lot of fun with this. So today we're just super excited to be given this opportunity from Darren and Alan at Carolina PPG. Thanks to Miguel over at Power2Fly in Portugal. They've allowed us to introduce a new product in the US for them. And so we have a new trike out. It's called the Sokar and X1. And you'll take a peek here. It showed up to our doorstep all the way from Portugal. And we're going to uncrate this and get all the parts and all the tools laid out, and stay tuned for our build video. Right there. All right, I actually broke out in a sweat. They really packaged all the parts in bubble wrap and tape really well, and I just want y'all to see the finish on this stuff. And it was hard to see on camera, but this is like a metallic, a really fine metallic orange, and it's almost like a flat matte, maybe black. It's not gloss black on the main chassis. Golly, the finish on this is absolutely gorgeous. So we got everything out. You see some wheels, tires, fenders, axles, the upper support, the upper cage, the front tire, gas tank, main chassis. These are going to be some of our hoop pieces here. Moster 185. This is going to be with a 140 prop for some added thrust. And our harness is over here on the table, and Jacob is going through all of our box of goodies. This is all of our hardware, straps, battery chargers, foot pegs, just any of the smaller parts that could easily get lost in the fray. There's a prop washer, bolts, a spark plug. Those are line guides and all the hardware and everything that we're going to need. I also encourage everybody, please don't forget this, we all need a tack/hour meter to break these engines in. And so I highly recommend you go ahead and grab one of those. We're using a Trail Tech. We used this plenty of times before and had great luck with them. And so Darren wanted to be with us today as we did this video on this brand new Sokar trike, but he couldn't. So we did the next best thing, and we've got cardboard Darren standing over there in the corner. Yep. And so we'll be consulting cardboard Darren every once in a while to make sure that we're getting everything right. Say hello, Darren. All right, now that we got all our parts and pieces unpacked and laid out so we see what we're working with, let the assembly process begin. Alright, so let's get this build started. Darren Locklear from Carolina PPG couldn't be here today, and so we did the next best thing. We got cardboard Darren. So cardboard Darren's going to stand over here in the corner, and with our new Power2Fly Sokar X1, and we're going to wait for Darren to give us the thumbs up approval as we get this build done today. And so we're going to start here with our parts layout. We got everything unboxed, of course, and we kind of sort of laid everything out to where it's going to be. Starting up here with the front tire, the fender, the front end. I want to point out that there are a lot of these bolts and stuff are already pre-installed here, so you're not fishing around for all these loose bolts or trying to figure out what goes where. And of course the main frame chassis, our gas tank, our rear spine where the engine mounts to, and then of course our hoop section, and we have our tires, rear axle, and everything laid out accordingly. And of course this is our upper cage bars. You see the carabiners there. I really like the fact they included stainless steel carabiners on a trike. That's really nice. I definitely like those better than aluminum ones, and a really nice harness system. Over here we laid everything out on the table nice and neat so you can see. I'll start out, this is going to be a Moster 185 with an electric start, and so we have a battery pack. This is a hobby grade 4-cell lithium battery. I will point out for those who don't know much about lithium batteries, please read the instructions on how you take care of these, how you charge and discharge these batteries. This is a pouch that'll velcro to the back of the spine below the engine. They also include a charger, and I also note too, because this is coming from overseas, this is not a standard American 110 plug, but they do include adapters when you order a trike. Darren ships those adapters out with you as well. I mentioned earlier that we did get a Trail Tech camera so we can do the break-in. And if we look here, all our parts laid out for our prop washers and prop bolts, a spark plug for the engine. This is our front foot pegs and brake pegs for the front. These are going to be our line guides that go on the hoop. We laid out these nuts and bolts here as well. These long skinny bolts are for the rear axle. This attaches at the bottom of the spine to where it attaches to the frame above the axle. This one long bolt is for the engine. The biggest bolt that comes in here is for our front axle. These two small bolts go for the back of the cage. We have 3 bolts that do not have nuts on them. These bolts here are for the gas tank, and you'll notice that 2 of them are a little bit shorter and there's one long one. You'll see when we put this thing together where the long one goes. Of course, up here all our quick connects. Of course, you see the color coordinated ones. We'll put those in the appropriate places. Our 2 straps here are our A-assist lines that go from the main upper hoop and clip into our wing for A-assist. We've also laid out some tools here that we're going to need, 5 and 6 millimeter, well, 4, 5 and 6 millimeter Allen keys. We do have a basic socket set, screwdriver, a wrench, adjustable wrench, some more Allen keys. Of course, we need some different sizes, but I don't think we will. We also are running some silicone lubricant that we put on our axles before we slide our tires on. I did use grease once before, and it just kind of gets to make a mess, and I just want something to kind of have some lubricant on those axles. We also have the medium grade thread locker, and we're also going to run some torque paint once we get everything tightened down in torque. We're going to mark that with our paint there. So that's a good layout of all the tools and all of our hardware that we're going to need for this build. And we're going to kick this build right off and start at the front end, and we'll get Jacob to start assembling that, and we'll show you kind of how everything goes together and what bolts and what tools that we use to assemble it. So hang out and stay tuned. All right, let's get this build kicked off. We're going to start with our front end, and Jacob's got these pieces here, and he's going to install the front fender. You'll notice on the front fender that there are some texture, some shape to it, and that portion of the fender goes towards the front of the trike, and the smoother section of the fender goes towards the rear. And he's putting a dab of medium Loctite and going to use his Allen key and run that bolt in. We definitely want that bolt to stay in place because we're not going to be able to access that bolt unless we pull the front tire off. So make sure that you get it good and tight. Next of all, you'll notice there are some plastic spacers that'll go on the sides of the fenders. There's a bolt that runs through, and once you get that bolt to run through the hole into the fender, there will be a washer and a nut that'll go on the back side. And we're going to repeat that step on both sides of the fender and get it tightened down. Got Jacob working pretty fast here. Washer and then the nut. Double check that. That is a fiberglass fender, so we want to tighten it, but we want to over tighten it and crack the fiberglass out on there. Jacob's using a small socket on the back side, of course his Allen key in the front. That's an 8mm socket.
Yep, 8mm, 4mm.
Yep, and a 4mm Allen key. So that gets our front end assembled.
Yep.
Next thing is Jacob has already used the silicone spray that we mentioned earlier to lube the axle. So he's got it pulled out. He's going to slide that through the tire. If you notice, the tread pattern on the tire is unidirectional, so it doesn't matter obviously on the tire tread, but it does matter about the brakes. So we do have a brake caliper on this side. It's going to engage into the side, and make sure we put some Loctite on these bolts, because we definitely don't want the wheel coming off on the ground or in flight. And so make sure we do that. You had to make sure when you put this together that this brake rotor slides into the caliper. There'll be a space for that. And he's got one side caught, and we'll catch the other side. We did pump these tires up, so you will need an air compressor of some sorts to put some air in them. And I just recommend you check the side of the tire for the recommended air pressure and adjust accordingly. So is that a 6mm?
That is a 5.
A 5mm Allen key. And that's going to get our front tire on. And he's going to go over those and double check them after we get them both caught. All right, now we have a rolling front end. You'll notice that texture I was talking about earlier on the front. So the big bolt that I showed you earlier in our hardware package, that's going to go for the front end. There's already bearings in here, so he's going to slide that over the front end. And get that lined up and feed that bolt through. There we go. Now, you're going to come from the underside. That nut, right, we don't need a lock washer because it has a nylon insert in the nut that'll grab those threads and lock it into place. You want to put some thread locker on that as well?
I don't think we will need it.
It may not hurt, but it may not be necessary either because of the nylock nut that they're using for that application, which is a pretty smart deal. Better safe than sorry. We're going to throw some Loctite on there.
There you go.
It definitely can't hurt. And this is not an item that we take apart very often, so we definitely want it to stay. So we're using about a 17 17 millimeter socket, and using a 17 millimeter wrench on the back side as well. And that'll get that front end tightened down.
Looking good.
So yeah, we got that going. Perfect. All right, our next step, we're going to grab all of our pedals for our brakes, and Jacob will collect that. All right, so far so good. What you say, Darren? Thumbs up? Yep, Darren's giving us the thumbs up. All right. Jacob's going to pull out these bolts that were already in the front end. All right. Going to use some Loctite on these. Slide that bolt through the foot pegs and just thread it right back into the end. Perfect. We'll repeat the same process on the other side. Obviously this is a build video and we don't want to bore you to death, and so we may fast forward or edit some of this stuff out. Some of it is pretty intuitive, but for those who are interested in every step along the way, we'll try to capture. All right, let's install our brake pedals. Do pay attention that there is a right hand side and a left hand side, and Jacob is installing the bolt that actually came already pre-installed in the pedal, so you don't have to go hunt it down. And so there is a 5 millimeter Allen head, and then there'll be a washer and a 10 millimeter nut on the back side, and he's going to get that caught there. And I believe those are nylon inserted nuts, and we want that thing to pivot there at the bottom, so we're not going to put any Loctite right there. The second bolt up higher is going to be a 4 millimeter Allen head, and it's going to have an 8 millimeter nut on the back side along. So Jacob's going to get that installed. Now of course that one there can be tightened down because we definitely don't want it to come loose. And you'll notice that we have our cable here running around to our brake caliper, and there is some adjustment in that. You'll notice that there is a couple of nuts here that we can loosen and tighten, and there's some threads here exposed, and so we can adjust those front brakes. Be something really similar to a bicycle adjustment on these brakes. And so, all right, he's got that side in. Going to get him to tighten that down, and of course we're going to turn around and do the same thing with this brake, with this foot peg. And you'll notice that we have the same attachment point here, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just stops right here and hooks in with the wire. And so there's 3 adjustment points that we can tie these things into, both for this foot peg and of course also for the brake pedal. So you can kind of adjust that out for how tall you are. You don't want the brake pedal so back far that when your legs are long, you're constantly applying pressure to the brake. That's not going to do you any good. So, all right, he's got that working. We'll go back and adjust that out once we get the trike assembled. And I wanted to point this out, that this thing is just stopped right here, and we're going to basically hard mount. We'll get this pedal adjusted, and we'll actually screw this screw down and lock it down. We're not worried about it pivoting at all. This is done this way, I do believe, because some people can add a foot throttle. So if we ever wanted to come in here and add a throttle and run a cable, of course, back to our engine, we could use and hook that throttle cable in here, have this peg pivot just like the brake pedal pivots, and have a foot throttle. Now, none of that is provided in the kit, and so that would be something that you would have to address yourself. But at least you do have that option, and that's a nice option to have if you have a need for that. All right, Jacob's going to finish up the install here, and we will be back to install the rear axles and tires in just a second. Stay tuned. The front end's done, and we're going to move to the back end of the trike, and we've got our axles laid out. First step is to install our axle in through our wheel and tire assembly. And if you note, like I said earlier, these tires, the tread on them is not directional, but you do want to put the tire on, in my opinion, to where the valve stem faces out, and that way you have easy access to that if you need to add air. So the axle slid through. There is a washer that Jacob is dropping into place, and then he will utilize a 13mm socket, and he's going to tighten that down. And is that a nylock?
Yes, it is.
Yep. So we also have a nylon nut there as well. And well, if you quit dropping it, maybe you can get it on there. Sometimes it's hard to do this with just one hand. Yep. We did add some silicone spray to these axles as well. We did not show that in the video, but Jacob had already done that. 13mm wrench, gonna get him good and tight. Yep, nice. There we go. I do believe that that washer is going to keep you from locking that thing down and over tightening it. So once we get this, I like to have these axle bolts, if you'll see there, where the nut is facing to the bottom. But this came pre-assembled from the factory, but we're going to double check it, and it looks like they did a fine job of getting that tight. In my hardware video I showed you earlier, these are the two long skinny bolts, and of course they have the nuts and the nylon installed already. So I'm going to pass one off to Jacob. He has slid this axle into the tube, and he'll be installing that right there if he can get that lined up. On the Colibri trike, it comes with removable pins, and that way it's easy to break that trike down. But on these more so fixed trikes, like the Sokar and of course also the Phoenix, we use bolts and nuts. So what are we using here?
A 5 and a 10.
A 5mm Allen key and a 10mm socket, and he's going to tighten that down. Now we're going to turn around and repeat this exact same process on the other side, and then we will continue on with the video. All right, we're back. We have a rolling chassis. Front end is done, back axles are in, and Jacob is going to start going upwards at this point. This is our spine, and it's where our motor is going to mount. And if you saw earlier, I showed you the hardware. There's two bolts that are distinctly smaller than the rest, and they're going to tie in here. You can see the difference. There's 6 of these bolts total that are the same, but there's only 2 like this. And these 2 shorter ones are going to go right here. And Jacob will pick up this spine and slide it into place. And it's going to slide right down here. And these ends will tie into there. We'll take one of the 6 longer bolts and run it through. And we'll catch the nut and a washer on the back side of that. And go ahead and slide us one of these bolts in over here. And Jacob's applying some thread locker. Here we're going to slide one of those 2 shorter bolts in and put thread locker there and catch those. So we'll end up having one here, we'll have 2 here in the center section, and then we'll have another shorter bolt here on this side. You also notice that this is an engine bolt, and there'll be one other engine bolt that I showed you in our hardware package, and that'll slide in through here when we mount the engine on the back. So let us go ahead and tighten all of these bolts down, get this spine up and going, and we'll be back for more goodies. What you think so far, Darren? Oh, thumbs up from Darren, looking good. We've got the spine installed. Jacob went ahead and put some torque paint on our nuts there. He's got all that nice and tightened down. And that just kind of makes it easier to pre-flight and go back over everything. Make sure nothing is loosened up as we fly. The next thing we're going to install is our gas tank. And I told you earlier in our video that there are 3 bolts. They did not come with nuts on them. And so there's 2 sizes. They have 2 of the shorter ones and 1 long one. And these are all going to thread into these brass inserts on the back of the gas tank. The top 2 bolts are going to be your 2 shortest ones. They'll slide through from the back side here. And you'll see as Jacob slides that through, he went ahead and put Loctite on it. This is the longest bolt down here in the center, and this will be our other shorter bolt here. So once he gets those slid in, what we're going to do basically is just push this gas tank right up to it. Jacob is going to line those bolts up and thread them in gently. Those brass inserts typically are kind of soft, and so you definitely don't want to cross thread those. Just take your time, and well, looks like it don't take much time. They're just threading right in. So got a real nice shot at the back of your head there. The gas tank comes already pre-installed with this air vent, and of course we're going to remove this later in the video, and this is where our fuel line from our engine is going to tie in. We're going to keep that cap on there for now to keep anything from getting in the tank. So Jacob will get that tightened down, and I believe our next step is we're going to get our cage installed. I've already got our harness sitting over here with this upper cage bars, but we're going to grab it next, and you'll notice there's a bracket here at the front, and there'll be 2 bolts to go in here, and then we'll have 2 bolts here at the back, and then there's 2 flanges, and these are going to be for some really the shortest bolts actually out of a hardware package that go on these 2 little flanges here at the rear. So we did put Loctite on the gas tank bolts. They do thread straight into the tank itself, and we definitely don't want that coming loose in flight. And Jacob's actually going to put some torque paint on those as well, just to make it easy to pre-flight. And our gas tank bolts hadn't loosened up. Perfect. All right, if you'll grab your end of the cage, I'm going to grab mine. I'm going to slide this right into place here at the front. There were 6 of those standard size bolts that was provided. You got yours there? Perfect. All right, I'm going to hold this in place. If you want to grab those short bolts real quick. If you notice, I'll get a video here, that these tabs on the upper bars actually fit to the inside there. We're just going to get a couple of them caught in place. So, Jacob, hang on a second. Yep. Yeah, there we go. Right there. Now we cooking. Perfect. All right. He'll get all of those bolts caught into place, and man, now this thing's starting to look like a trike. What'd you say, Darren? Oh, thumbs up from Darren. I'm glad we had Darren today. He's going to keep us straight, make sure we're getting everything right. I think he only knows how to give a thumbs up. All right, installing the washers and the nuts. This is a really similar setup to my larger Phoenix trike and how this goes together. And these bolts here at the front, and of course obviously our bolts here at the back that Jacob's going to be installing, along with these two tabs. This basically holds everything together. And so out of those 6 bolts, those are something that I always double check each time I fly, to make sure that they're there and they're tightened appropriately. That's the last thing we want coming loose. There's a lot of things that can come loose, but we definitely don't want those bolts coming loose. So Jacob's putting the final touches on those bolts. We'll make sure that they are good and tight, and we'll put some torque paint on them. And once we get that done, we'll be back to show you how to install all of the cage. Let us get this tightened down. Stay tuned. All right, the upper bars are all installed. Everything's tightened down. We went ahead and applied torque paint to everything there. Our next step, we're actually going to install the engine next, because we didn't want to put all this hoop section in place quite yet, just to make the video easier to shoot for y'all. There is a bolt that's already pre-installed in this spine. We're going to take that out, and Jacob's going to pick up this engine. See if he can do all this by himself. It looks like he can. No. We'll slide that bracket through there. Once he gets that engine aligned, boom, now the engine's hung. So it's really nice that Power2Fly went ahead and assembled this engine, put the exhaust system on it for us. You'll see here that our fuel line will have the opposite side of the red cap, so that kind of helps point us in the right direction where we need to hook it up to, down here at the gas tank. And there's only 2 main bolts. I showed you earlier in our video with the hardware that this was the only 1 bolt that size by itself, and it's going to slide through this hole and then through the engine bracket. I prefer to put the bolt in this way, so we have the Allen head here and the bolt sticks out the back over here, so we'll be able to put torque paint back in this spot on the nut, because once our harness hangs in this area, excuse me, it'll be hard to check for torque paint on this side. Not to mention, I'd rather have a flush bolt if I do lean back in my harness poking me in the back. So Jacob's going to get that, slide that through, stick the washer and the nut on the rear, and tighten that down. Really straightforward on how they have this all engineered and put together. It goes together super simple. Down here you'll notice we've got some wires and a battery plug. We have a box that's already here with a switch on it. This is the same exact setup that we run on our Phoenix, and we'll be able to Velcro our bag back here with our battery, and we'll go ahead and install that around this spine. There's a gap right here at the gas tank. It's usually a good spot, or you make it even slide it here and Velcro that battery pack down right here. Plug it in, hook all the wires up. There'll be a ground wire here. This is all the stuff for our ignition. We'll go over that in just a little bit as well. All right, I'm going to take our Polini throttle, just kind of hang it over here to get it out of our way. Jacob will get all of those tightened down, and he's putting the torque paint in place. And then our next step is going to be to install our upper cage. This piece just drops right into place, and there will be some quick connects. And if you noticed earlier that we had, I think, 4 black ones and 2 chrome ones.
Also notice there's a difference in the length of what it looks like. Is there?
It could be.
Maybe not.
We'll look at that and see. You pay close attention if there's any different lengths. We'll figure that out as soon as we go to slide them in. All right. These washers have a rubber backing to them, and so you always want to make sure that that rubber is facing the paint side.
If you look right, let's make sure. The same. Okay.
Yeah. It looks like it has longer threads, don't it? Is the threads the same?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Just going to go ahead and slide that in, put the rubber washer behind it, and go ahead and tighten these nuts up. When I get these nice and tight, I always prefer to fold them up. We can't fold them down because we're going to hit the bar here, and so we're going to fold these up. And if you'll notice here on the Phoenix, same setup. Once I get mine tightened down, I'll run a zip tie around the frame, just kind of as a safety backup. That way this lever can never pop loose. Now, be forewarned that regardless of this never releasing, this thing here on the back, when I pre-flight, I always check my nuts to make sure that I either see threads sticking out and I know this is still tight as well. But I do like running a zip tie. It just gives me a peace of mind on there, and we'll make sure we address that on this trike as well. Perfect. So that was just 2 quick connects, and that's already assembled. If you want to grab those upper bars there, they're going to slide into place. These are our plastic connectors here. We'll fold those up.
Actually, I'm gonna do these first.
All right.
This first.
Get those. All right. It takes a minute. Get this into place. There we go. All right. This puts this side of the hoop in place, and we'll run some quick connects.
We're gonna run the silver one in the thicker bar right here because it is longer.
Okay.
Ooh, let's see. There you go.
I'm not 100% sure exactly why we had 2 of them that was silver, other than the fact that they very well may have a different length on them. But you'll notice that this bar here is considerably thicker than these bars here. So no matter what color scheme that you do on yours, just pay close attention to the length of the threads when you install those, and common sense should be your guide. Jacob's installing the other quick connect down there as well, and you notice, like I said earlier, we tighten them up and fold them in a direction that's going to be easy for us to put a zip tie there to hold those in place. And they did the same thing here. Okay, this thing is really starting to take shape. Are you excited yet, Darren? I can't tell. Darren's always smiling, so at least we're getting a thumbs up. So far, so good. We got Jacob moving. This thing is coming right along together. This definitely shouldn't be an intimidating project for somebody new in the hobby. If you have any kind of mechanical experience whatsoever, you just kind of know your way around a tool set, this should be really straightforward. And Miguel and all the guys at Power2Fly do such a great job, not just the finish, which is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the color combination, but also the fit. Everything just goes right together. I'm not having to force anything or bend anything or file or cut or anything. It just all goes right together. Man, this is looking good. I'm so excited. All right, Jacob is finishing that last quick connect. Although we're going to skip it right this second, please pay attention that you address this here, just to give you a peace of mind. I know that some people fly with no zip ties whatsoever, but this is a great place. There's already a hole provided, and so do your due diligence there. The net here is going to slide in front of our piece, and slide on. Once it slides on, we have these plastic pieces that snap into place and do a fantastic job of holding everything together. This is the exact same setup on the Phoenix trike as well, and I have had zero issues. Yeah, you messed up right there. Bend those backwards first. Now that you got it on, it wants to stay on. There we go. So make sure those are bent down out of your place first. There you go. Perfect. That should go click, click. And we'll do the same thing here. Just like that. That's put into place. That also gives you a good idea of about how long it takes to take the hoop off if need be for transportation. And hopefully later on, maybe in another video, we're going to get the tape measure out and we're going to do a comparison on the trikes and hopefully give y'all some numbers and some ideas about what kind of trailer or truck or whatever it's going to take to transport these trikes to the field. And so Jacob is getting the net. Looks like he is running his loop down here at the bottom. And you know, I'm sure there's probably more than one way to do that, but there again, his looks just as good as any. Perfect. Beautiful. Man, that's looking sharp. All right, we are getting there. I think we're going to go ahead, and we're starting to run out of parts here, and hang this harness into place, and we'll have that there. And then what we've got left is going to be obviously the engine, where we can address the spark plug, the propeller, the battery, routing the throttle. We're going to need to route this throttle here. You can't just hang loose back here. We're going to hook up the fuel line. And then we've got some exciting news. This thing over here in the corner, it's just been kind of hanging out, being lonely all by itself. And we're going to show you what this is. This is a new feature on these trikes, and we're excited to see this installed, and we'll be glad to show y'all what that is. All right, let's hang this harness.
All right. Are you ready?
This is probably going to be one of the more easier parts. We've got a carabiner. These straps already come hung in place. And we're just going to grab our carabiners, make sure that none of the harness is twisted, and hook those carabiners into place, and that's going to suspend our harness there. Then you'll notice here on the back side we have these buckles, and of course there's adjustment on these as well. Jacob will get them hooked there. I want to show you how these things work. All right, you see how this secondary buckle here, this is more of a safety. And so we open up this big buckle. Yeah, let's see if we can see that good. And when we put it, we push down on the button and slide it into place. Right? And so this locks in here in the back on the underside, and it keeps this thing from even trying to lift. But the button right there is also going to keep it from lifting and coming out of place as well. So pretty ingenious feature there. There's obviously adjustments back here on the back of the strap, and so you can adjust these to get your height or how low you want it. And obviously we can't go too low because we have to keep our back off the gas tank here in the rear. There's also adjustments here on the side that's going to lift this up as well, and some of that's going to depend on, you know, how tall you are. We're just getting a really comfortable seating position. Down here at the bottom on the spine there is a huge Velcro piece, and we're going to peel that apart, and that is going to wrap around our spine here. And I tell you what, don't underestimate Velcro. This stuff is super strong. Jacob's making sure that it's wrapped around. He wants to keep it really tight and really flat and smooth so we get full engagement on the Velcro. Yeah, perfect. That went into place great. Beautiful. All right, this is going to have a neat buckle. We're going to have these 3 points here for our crotch strap, and then of course across our midsection, chest, waist, and then our shoulder straps. You'll notice that there's adjustment here as well. When we get in, buckle that down. We do have a zippered pouch here on the side with our Power2Fly logo. So if you want to drop some things into the pouch, that works great. Looks like there's Velcro, super nice plush foam in the bottom of the seat. And I fly this exact same harness in my Phoenix, and I can attest to how comfortable it is. Also, we have a zippered pocket on the other side as well. And underneath, if I'm not mistaken, we've got some nice storage here. I just absolutely zipped it up, so unzipping it. I'll keep a wing bag under here in case I have to land off field, and I'll have a bag here always in my bottom so I can pack my wing up if I need to get out of a cotton field or something. All right, this thing is taking shape, and stay tuned. I'm gonna do a quick walk around so you can kind of see what we're looking at. And we're so excited, we're probably gonna pause and like just sit in the thing. Oh, Jacob beat me to it. And just try this thing out. Jacob is 6'3", about what, 215? He's young and invincible. And so you can kind of see what he's going to look like sitting in the trike. One of my things when I was researching trikes before I bought my Phoenix, I did a lot of question asking. I wanted to make sure that visibility was good. Forward visibility as well as side to side, and was really critical for me. That's what it's all about, low and slow and enjoying the view. And so I wanted to have a lot of area here that didn't block my vision. And I also like the fact that they really made this super wide here in the front. I see a lot of them that'll come and have it just so narrow, and it blocks your vision as well as makes it harder to get in and out of the trike. So this is going to be great. I'm really excited about the size of this trike. So side view, that's him looking forward. So he's got tons of forward visibility without this bar getting in the way. And like I say, Jacob's 6'3", so it can only get better if you're shorter than 6'3". And of course there is adjustment here, so we hadn't played with any of that if we need to go up with that any. So yeah, you look great in there. Perfect. All right, stay tuned. We're going to be back to finish off all the little fine details, and looking forward to getting this thing finished and broken in and get it up in the air. All right, Jacob, we have got the main body of the trike built. Let's get down to the fine details. Sometimes these finer details is what's a stumbling block for a lot of people, and so we're going to try to go over them quickly but also thoroughly. The first thing we're going to do here, these are our A-assist lines. They come in the kit. Jacob's going to show you where we're going to wrap those around and run the carabiner back through, and basically it's just lapping it through, and you've got A-assist. When you get your wings set up, these things are of course adjustable, and you'll adjust those out. You should have a trainer to show you how to fit those to your wing. And so we're going to have of course one per side, but this is where they tie in right here on this main bar. The Colibri trike, by the way, doesn't have A-assist. You have to hold the A's as you launch, and like on this type of trike, and of course the Phoenix trike does have A-assist on it as well. And man, these things make a whole big difference when you're launching. All right, we got the A-assist on. We're going to do the line holders or line guides that tie right in here on the end of the cage. Of course, there's two of them in the kit. You'll notice there's a chamfered section on the underside, so you want to make sure that it's sitting down on that curvature of the tube. And once that's sitting properly, Jacob will give it a good tightening, and there'll be one on each side as well. This is where your lines are going to lay when you lay your glider out and tie into your carabiners. and this keeps these lines from falling down, of course, and getting down in your tires as well. So we'll get those tightened. If you noticed on my Phoenix, I actually added this little feature that we did, and we ran some strap. It doesn't have to be tight, but if these lines do fall off the line holders, we don't want them running up underneath and getting wrapped around the tire. And so we ran these straps here and tied them in down here. You can see how it just ties right off the axle there. So that's a neat feature that we may or may not do on the new Sokar. So Jacob's getting the other line guide tightened in, and the next thing we're going to do is step to our engine. And we've got several things. Obviously the engine bolted on really easy with just 2 bolts, but we're going to have to address some of the connections. Our fuel line is already connected to the carburetor on our engine. That's the way it comes, and it's pretty self-explanatory. There's a red plug on each end of the fuel line, so we're going to remove that and remove that there. And it's just a matter of simply sliding that onto the nipple on the gas tank, and you would be situated. We're going to come back and actually build us some standoffs here on the side of this frame rail, and we're going to cut some excess fuel line and use some zip ties, and we'll tie this in with this fuel bulb so this thing is not rubbing up and down as you fly. And we want to keep this fuel line up here at the top, of course, as loose as possible and not rubbing on anything there. We definitely don't want to get anything rubbing on that fuel line and rubbing a hole in it. If that thing sucks air, it's going to cause that engine to run lean and fry your engine. So we'll address that. Obviously that's personal preference and how you want to do it, but that's going to be the way that we choose to address it and to secure that fuel line down. All right, Jacob's going to take care of that, and we'll be right back to show you the finished product. So here's the completed fuel hookup, and I'll show you what we did. This fuel line here coming from the factory, we actually cut off 2 small pieces, and if you'll see here that we took those small pieces of fuel line and used that as a standoff. And so we just take a long zip tie and run it through and around the frame, back through the standoff, and then of course the zip tie is going to catch the fuel line coming off the fuel bulb. And we did that top and bottom here, and that's going to secure this. It still allows this not to rub the frame, so I can actually get my finger here and use the fuel bulb without it rubbing. Keeps all of this secure, and nothing here up is touching and rubbing our fuel line. So just cut off a little bit off the end, use them as standoffs, get you a couple of zip ties. We also ran a zip tie here at the nipple on the tank just as a backup as well. The next thing we're going to address is the electrical. When you get your machine, there's a box here on the back, and it'll have a wire loom coming out of it, and there'll be a few wires in there, basically 3 wires. One is going to be self-explanatory. It'll have a fitting on the end, and this is a ground wire. The brown wire that's got a spade connector on the end is going to engage the starter. There is a spade connector. Put your finger there on the electric starter, because this is a dual start engine, not just a pull start. So you'll run this wire up through here, find you a good spot because we don't want it rubbing on anything. There's already some wire loom from the factory. Jacob's going to install the spade connector on the electric starter. We pulled the starter, the lower starter bolt out. You can see where my finger's at, and this is the snout that engages the flywheel gears here to crank the engine. We removed this bolt from the factory, and that is the bolt that you're seeing here ran. And so we're going to just reinstall that starter bolt now, and that's going to be our ground, and Jacob will tighten that up. So we'll have our ground, we'll have our starter, and also up here you're going to see a red connector. There's a blue wire coming here. This is off the ignition, and those 2 plugs, just it's a round spade, and they plug in together. So 3 wires, pretty self-explanatory. That's where those 3 wires go. And Jacob will finish tightening up that starter, and that'll fix that. You'll also notice here on the front of the motor is our pull start, and if we'll grab it and drag it up, there is a carabiner here, And of course this is going to just hook into place right here in the provided. And so that gives us our dual start. We can pull start, or of course we can mash the button on our throttle and crank it with electric start. So that pretty much addresses everything there. The other two things, which are self-explanatory, obviously is the spark plug. Jacob is pulling out the red cap that comes in from the factory. That's just to keep things from getting in the engine. And we're going to put the spark plug in. If you notice, the spark plug comes out, it doesn't look brand new. These engines are test run, and you can see there in the picture the brown on it. Just kind of shows that this engine has been cranked. It does run, and excuse me, he'll install that. We're using a 13/16 socket on the spark plug, and tighten it down snug. We definitely don't want it coming loose, but we also don't want to strip the threads out of the head either by over tightening. There we go. Make sure that boot snaps on nice and secure. This is also something that every time I pre-flight, I always make sure that this is a good connection here. Motor doesn't run without spark. Battery pack, you'll see it comes in a Velcro pouch, and our battery is here. If you notice how this is sewn together, we want to put this up to where the Velcro wraps around this way, not this way. And so we want to wrap the Velcro around the pouch and then seal that up against the frame. And as Jacob gets under here and shows you, if we can see on the camera, there is a groove or a slot right above the upper gas tank mount there. And he's going to run that Velcro strap around and install the battery pouch nice and secure. We want maximum contact with our Velcro straps there, and of course you see your connectors there for to plug the battery in. When you plug that battery in, there will be a switch, an arming switch on this side of the box, and we'll flip that switch up and this light should turn red to let you know that it's armed. You definitely want to make sure you cut this off and unplug the battery after every flight. If you leave this battery connected, there's a possibility there could be a drain on it. If you run this battery down below a certain voltage, it's going to kill it permanently. There again, I want to stress to you, it does come with an included charger. I want to stress that you really read the instructions and fully understand lithium batteries. They are really nice and lightweight, but they do have the potential to be dangerous. And so you definitely want to do things right there. Our prop goes on next. If you'll notice, our spacer has a flange here, and this flange obviously is going to go to the outside to the propeller, and then here on the back side is what's going to go on the flange on our pulley on our motor. So line up those holes and push that down. Jacob's already got the prop slid together, the front washer and all the screws. He'll slide that together and tighten those down. We're actually using a pretty inexpensive, I believe, Harbor Freight torque wrench for some small jobs like this. And it says right on the propeller, I believe here, torque to 8 Newton meters. So it gives you a torque range there as well to torque that prop down. Once he gets the prop installed, that pretty much wraps up the engine installation. Very simple. I would encourage you to make sure to check everything and see. I already see an issue here. See where this pull start line is touching the fuel line. So we'll need to come in here and use some zip ties to secure. We don't want anything having the potential to rub, whether it's rubbing raw on a fuel line, rubbing any of the electrical connections, rubbing on our pull start cord to fray that. And so we want to make sure that everything doesn't come in contact with things that could rub it raw and eventually cause problems for us. So always be real careful with how you route everything to make sure that we don't have future problems or set ourselves up for problems with that. All right, this thing is coming together. Darren looks like he's excited. He's giving us the thumbs up, and we're getting real close to getting this machine completely built. The next step after we get all this done is going to be a new one for us, is there's a whole separate cage sitting over here on the back. And we're going to sort through this and figure it out, and it's going to mount on the back side of the cage. And what that's going to do is give us protection on the back side of the prop. This trike is going to be used in the Carolina PPG school, so if you're interested in trike training, this is what's going to be used for trike training with Carolina PPG. And you can reach out to Darren or Alan at Carolina PPG, and I know they'll be glad to help you out and fill you in on all the information and book your training. And so this is going to go on the back. We're going to sort this out and show you what it looks like when it goes on. Okay. All right, let's hit some of the high points here. We got the safety cage installed. I'm not doing a video on installation. Not everybody's going to want this, but it is a training unit, and so that's the purpose and the reasoning behind this rear cage. It velcros into place, and of course the 4 quadrants snap together with the same type snap pieces that hold the hoop together as well. And then of course there's a place to tension the net, Velcro strap to tension it, so you've got tension here on the back. Really neat idea, and I think it's a wonderful training aid. You know, it keeps your lines as you're learning to kite your wing from falling down and getting tangled up in the prop, or worse yet, getting cut by the prop. Another thing I want to point out to you is there's a grommet here on the side of the frame that you're going to run your throttle cable through. If you don't secure this throttle cable here, then there's a possibility pushing back that this could end up getting back in the prop. So this is a must to secure this throttle cable down as well. This is a left-handed throttle model, and so they've got the this installed there for you to attach that. Another thing that we installed, and obviously this doesn't come in the factory, but highly recommend, is our Trail Tech. This is an RPM gauge and an hour meter, and we installed it with zip ties right here on this little back corner. If you're sitting in the seat, it's just kind of easy to turn your head and look if you need to look, but that's not a must instrument that you need to be observing while flying. We're basically using that just to break in the engine and also to keep track of how many hours as far as any maintenance that needs to be done on that as well. So that pretty much ties up everything on the build. Absolutely gorgeous trike, and we're real pleased with the outcome, the fit, the finish. The color choices on this one is absolutely beautiful as well. And we want to thank Darren and Cardboard Darren for making an appearance, and we'll get him over here, and that way it looks like you're doing something. We want to thank Darren and Alan from Carolina PPG. They are the Power2Fly US importers of all Power2Fly products. And we'd also like to thank Miguel at Power2Fly in Portugal for turning out such a beautiful product. And this thing is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it in the air. And like I say, if you want to trike train, reach out to Carolina PPG, and they'd be more than happy to set you up with some training dates and get you in this beautiful trike and teach you how to fly. So until the next time, we're going to line up a video to give y'all some dimensions, possibly weight, also what size trailers this thing is going to fit in, and give you some other things there, and kind of show you what it looks like sitting in the trike, so you can see how good of visibility and the accessibility that you have getting in this trike. I believe this is big boy and old man approved on this trike, and so we're really excited about it. So look out for another video from us, and we appreciate you watching. Until next time, have a blessed day.